Hello, everybody. This is Coach Bridget from the Health Dare, a 90-day cellular health program that's reversing the symptoms of type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, IBS, obesity. People are losing weight. They're flipping their medical charts upside down, and we're changing the world one success story at a time. And today we have an amazing guest on our podcast, Miss Kathy here, who is a previous client. And today we're talking about the word thrive. Maya Angelou said, "My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style." And I love that quote by Maya Angelou. And by the way, she was the world's first nonfiction female African-American author. So we celebrate her, and that's so exciting. But today we're going to talk about Kathy. She didn't just survive, she thrived. And Kathy is actually a cancer survivor. So we're going to talk about this today. Welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thank you.
We're so glad you're here today. So Kathy, tell us a little bit about where your story began. When did you decide, I've got to do something about my health? What was the straw that broke the camel's back for you?
Well, the straw that broke the camel's back was when I went to the doctor in November of 2018. My blood pressure was sky high. I was right there at being a diabetic. I couldn't walk from the car inside anywhere because I was just exhausted and out of breath. And my doctor said, "Okay, enough is enough." And I didn't even know where to start.
Wow. So you couldn't walk?
No, I'd already had 2 knee replacements, and because I was so heavy, and I still it was hard for me to get around because I was so heavy.
So 300 pounds, 2 knee replacements. How was that affecting your life and your relationships at the time?
Well, I didn't want to do anything. Like every time my grandkids wanted to do something, or my husband said, "Let's go do something," I'm like, no, I think not. I'll just stay at home, because I didn't have the energy and I didn't have the willpower just to make myself get up and go.
Now, obviously, you had weight, and you had these symptoms of the high blood pressure, and you're pre-diabetic. You're just bordering on that diabetes line, and that's scary. Your doctor says enough is enough. What was your doctor's name, by the way?
Dr. Andy McCraw.
Dr. Andy McCraw. So Dr. McCraw says, "Kathy, enough is enough." But were you also struggling with anxiety, depression, those kinds of things?
Yes, I've been on medicine ever since I had the cancer, because you're always in fear of it coming back, whether it be, you just never know. Every time you go to the doctor, you're like, okay, what's going to happen today? So I was depressed. My self-esteem was zero, because I just looked in the mirror and I'm like, ugh,
Absolutely.
And like I had young grandchildren, and I had no energy to play with them or do anything. So I basically got up, went home, went to work, came home, and sat down and did nothing the rest of the day.
Well, having had my own 80-pound weight loss journey, I know that I used to have to plan my trips through the grocery store. I had to start at the milk, and then work my way to the bread, and then hit the peanut butter, because I knew that by the time I got to the counter, my back was going to be in stabbing pain, and I had to get it all done. And I remember, I was in my 30s. Very unhealthy, 80 pounds overweight, obese, taking care of 2 children as a single mother. And the anxiety and depression that I had, just how I felt about myself. And it's very interesting, because the same guys that slammed the door in my face when I was 80 pounds overweight were opening for them for me 90 days later. So the quality of life is just unbelievable. But most health and wellness companies are started by someone who's never been overweight, never been obese, never understood that psychological aspect of it. And it's so hard to get a mindset of thriving when you're surviving.
Yes, all you want to do is just to get through the day and go to bed, because you're just tired.
Absolutely. And you're mentally exhausted. It's almost a feeling of hopelessness. It's like being in a dark pit, and really the only thing that makes you feel good is food.
Yes, and you plan in your next meal before you ever get through with that meal.
That's right. It's your only pleasure in life. I mean, we've had clients that have such an emotional connection to food where a loved one passed away and there's a casserole that reminds them of that person. You don't get to be 80 pounds overweight. You don't get to be 300 pounds overweight without some emotional trauma as well that you're trying to overcome.
Yes.
So tell us about the cancer. When did that occur and how did that lead up to you getting so overweight and so depressed and all of that?
I was first diagnosed in September of 2007. I had just turned 50 years old. I just went for routine colonoscopy and found out that I had cancer. I had a colon resection, and it came back that I was in stage 3 already. So I took all the chemo treatments. I did everything I was supposed to do. And then 18 months later, I had it again, and it had come back in my liver that time. So I had basically 3 or 4 surgeries from November to February. I had a complete liver resection and took chemo once again. And at that point, it was just kind of like, okay, I survived cancer, so I'm just going to eat and do whatever I want to do.
Absolutely. Were you afraid that it was going to come back again?
Oh, yes. Every time you go to have a CAT scan or another colonoscopy, you're like, okay, is this the time it's going to come back? Because the first time after 18 months, I had no clue that it was back. And if they hadn't have done a CAT scan, I still wouldn't have had any clue because I didn't feel bad, but there it was.
So it's interesting to me that even after beating cancer twice, you still had kind of that just survivor mindset. I'm just going to hang on for the ride. I'm going to eat what I want, do what feels good, and just hope for the best.
That's exactly it. It was kind of like I got through this, so, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to do what I want to do, and that was the mindset I was in.
So in that moment in the doctor's office when he said, you've got to do something, why was that such a pivotal moment, 6 years after the cancer? Why was that different than the cancer scare twice?
Well, he's not only my doctor, but he's a friend. He goes to our church, and he's like, you have grandchildren. You have got to fix this,
Wow.
And he was kind of stern and ugly. So I said, okay.
Sounds like a health coach. We need to hire him over at the Health Dare. So how many grandkids did you have at that time?
At that time, I only had 4, but since I've started the Health Dare, I've had another one.
Well, congratulations. That's wonderful. So how did your children and grandchildren respond when they saw your transformation?
They're like, they're amazed, they're like, Mimi, let's go do so-and-so. Let's go do so-and-so, and every day they encourage me, because probably now I'm over obsessed with if I don't get my exercise in and I eat something I really shouldn't eat, they're like, it's okay. It's okay. You can take a day off.
Well, it's so funny. I was just talking to one of our health coaches in the Greenville office, Coach Amber, and who also lost 100 pounds, by the way. She's a little tiny thing, so people come in and kind of think, oh, Amber, she's only in her 20s. She's never had any issues. She's never, what does she know about weight loss? And she has lost 100 pounds. But I was talking to Amber, and we were talking about doing this podcast, and she said, I know, Kathy. She said, I pass her every day on the way to work in Simpsonville, walking that sidewalk. I've seen her walking in the rain, in the cold, in the hot. She said, I know who she is because she's the girl who walks every day.
Every day. Yeah, and I was just telling my husband this morning as we were walking, I said, I sure think I'd rather walk in the cold rather than the hot and the humidity.
Absolutely, in the burning heat that we've been having this summer. So, and how old are you, Kathy?
I am now 64.
64 years old. You've beat cancer twice. You were 300 pounds, diabetic, high blood pressure, sleep apnea. Tell us about your results.
Well, now I'm below 200 pounds, and every day, early in the morning, whether it be 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, I get up, and my husband sometimes goes, sometimes he doesn't, and I walk between 4.5 and 5 miles. It doesn't matter what the weather is, I get up and go.
You lost over 100 pounds.
Yes.
That's incredible. Now, I don't want anyone who's listening under the sound of my voice out there to think, okay, it's an easy magic pill. Kathy came to the Health Dare, and 30 days later, she's 100 pounds less. I mean, I think the only way to accomplish that is to chop off a limb. So we didn't do that. She's still got all her limbs. So, Kathy, realistically, How long did it take you to lose 100 pounds?
Well, I started, like I say, in November of 2018, and this is now July of 2019.
Okay.
When I first started, it was just kind of like you need to cut out your carbs, you need to cut out your sugar. And of course, I cut out what I thought was sugar to start with, and I lost 25 pounds right off.
Yeah.
But I was eating ketchup, I was eating condiments, and I didn't
all the little
know,
hidden sugars.
all that is covered
They're
in
sneaky, aren't
sugar,
they?
you know.
Isn't it crazy how vitamin water has more sugar than 3 Krispy Kreme donuts?
That is exactly it. You know, when like the amount of ketchup I was eating was like, oh, I could have had 2 or 3 ice cream cones.
Exactly. I'd rather have the ice cream cone than the vitamin water.
That's right.
So it's really interesting. And, finding out that you can still enjoy food because God made us to enjoy it. We have taste buds that lights up the reward center in the brain when we eat food that we like. Everything in life is based around food. Christmas and Thanksgiving and holidays and special occasions and family around the dinner table. So food should be celebrated, but our attitude toward food just has to be different. Food is medicine. Food can give us energy and sustain us, So it's not something to drown ourselves in depression. It's something to celebrate with. We can still have our steak and baked potato on the health there. We can still have fruit and honey and Splenda and stevia. We can still have, carbs and bread and things like that. So it's exciting to find a program for a girl over here who loves to eat and hates to exercise. The health there was pretty much the only thing that I could do. It's still a program, but it's the easiest one.
That's correct. I mean, because you still get your ice cream. We still have spaghetti, but it's with whole wheat.
That's
it's
right.
with good kind of ground beef,
That's right.
I still have the things I like, but I just do it differently.
Now tell us, Kathy, how did the health coaching team encourage you? Did you enjoy the events? What did you like the most about it?
What I liked about it was when I first started, it was like, oh no, what am I going to eat? Because they were like, look at all the hidden sugars.
Yes.
Well, the first event I went to was when we went to the grocery store at Whole Foods. They took us through the whole grocery store, and they're like, you can have all of this. You can have all of that. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that. And it was early in the spring, summertime, so you had a lot of fresh vegetables from which to choose from too. So that made it a whole lot easier.
Absolutely. Well, Kathy, what would you say to somebody who's looking at, Coach Bridget, I lost 80 pounds on the health dare. We have Kathy who lost over 100 pounds. I think you're closing in on 120 pounds in a year's time, which is incredible. So what would you say to somebody who's skeptical, who's sitting at home with their bag of chips and they're thinking, I cannot do that. I just want to survive. I just want to take it easy and I just want to make it through. Take the path of least resistance. What would you say to that person?
I would say if I can do it, anybody can do it because, like I said, I was that lazy person. All I did was come home from work and sit down, look forward to the next meal, and I still like to eat better than anybody else that I know
Me too.
of.
Every event at the health there has food.
That's right. And I eat. It's just a different kind of eat.
Yes, absolutely. Well, how can we thrive and not just survive, not only physically, but emotionally, spiritually in our relationships? I don't want to just exist. I want to get the most out of life like God created me to have, and I have to be healthy to do that.
That's correct.
And we have a lot of clients that come in here, these symptoms and this belly fat. So you lost 100 of these yellow blobs, but this visceral fat really starts to stick right around that middle age, the 40s and the 50s. So we have a lot of clients. Our average age is 54 on the health dare. So we have people all the way up to 80 years old. We do have younger people, but that visceral, sticky belly fat starts to cling onto you around that 50 years old age. So we have a lot of people that come to the health dare with grandchildren and children, and they're trying to skate by, just live their lives, go on cruises, enjoy their retirement. But I want to challenge those clients today. It's my job. And I want you to challenge them, Kathy, because you have learned to thrive. I want them to change that mindset of surviving to thriving. I want them to stop trying to manage their diabetes and their high blood pressure. I want them to stop sleeping with a CPAP machine in separate recliners and enjoy the spouse that they lived for 40, 50 years with. I want them to see their grandchildren grow up and walk down the aisle. I want them to fit in the roller coaster at Carowinds so they can enjoy their grandchildren and be able to walk 15 miles at Disney World. I don't want them to just sail off into retirement and give up. I want them to celebrate that stage of life and not just exist with the compounding health problems. I'm younger than you, so my generation is making the stupid mistakes. Your generation made them a long time ago, and you have wisdom to impart. And I find that a lot of times people who get in their 60s and 70s and have so much to teach and so much to give to the next generation, they just suffer from these health problems to where they can't be influential, And I just want to challenge them to do the hard thing and to thrive, not just survive, And the people who need you the most are spending the most time on your needs, whereas we could be giving back, And Kathy, because you decided to do the hard thing and take control of your health, how is that changing your life right now with your grandchildren, your children?
Well, I enjoy them. It's not an effort to be able to stay at home with them and keep them. I didn't retire till over a year ago, and when I retired was when I really got healthy because I had me time then. Everything didn't revolve around taking care of everybody else, and I enjoy my grandchildren, but I'm just as important as they are. And in order to be able to enjoy them, I have to get myself healthy.
That's exactly right. And if you don't take care of yourself, then you won't be able to take care of other people.
That's
correct. Or worse, your family is going to be taking care of you, which is your worst nightmare. You want to be there for them. As mothers, that's how we are. We want to love and we want to nurture. And our worst nightmare is them having to take care of us. And you have changed the course of your life forever. You have altered your story, which is absolutely amazing to me. And the truth is that surviving is just this lie that we tell ourselves, that we just have to survive what's happening to us. But really, we can take control and make it happen for ourselves. I have a client in Colombia named David Abel. He has no arms and no legs. And he literally lost 7.5 inches off his torso in the first 4 weeks. And he just looks right in that camera and says, I dare you. If I could take the health dare, you can too. I have a client, Nikki, from Maggie Valley up in the Asheville area. She was in a wheelchair. Her knees were bad. She could barely walk, just like you were just talking about. And she lost 60 pounds in 8 weeks. And at her 8-week evaluation, we all cheered. And she got up out of that wheelchair and walked down the hall. And it was the most incredible moment. And you think about the bad feeling that you get from dieting. When you first started, you were overwhelmed.
Yes.
Right.
Didn't even know where to start.
Exactly. Giving up donuts, giving up sugar, giving up all the cake that we love. That's a difficult feeling. I think that's why people don't take that step, because they don't want to be uncomfortable. But at the same time, the feeling that you get 10 years go by where you're making bad choices, bad decisions, living in anxiety and depression, and you look into your grandchildren's eyes and you have to tell them, I didn't do the hard thing, and now you have to take care of me. Imagine that feeling of discomfort and emotional trauma and weigh the odds.
I would rather be healthy so I can help take care of them rather than them take care of me.
Right. And that's where you had that decision in the doctor's office.
Yes.
That's right. So stop making excuses. I dare you, like Kathy, to move past survival and get to the place where you're thriving. And there's 3 ways to do that. Number 1, to thrive and not survive, prepare for the worst case scenario and be exceedingly grateful for everything else. And Kathy, having had cancer twice, I can't imagine. You were prepared for worst case scenario.
Oh, yes. I was kind of like, okay, whatever happens, happens. I'm going to do everything I can. And of course, there were days it was just like, is this even worth it, But I'm glad I did. And I'm glad I took the dare.
Well, we're glad you did too. Thank you for sharing today. But preparing for the worst case scenario, being smart, making those healthy decisions. You knew you had cancer. You knew you had high blood pressure. You knew you were 300 pounds. You knew you couldn't walk. So you started preparing for the worst case scenario. But how grateful are you to be here and alive and sharing your story?
I am so grateful because I feel better. My self-esteem is better, and I'm just enjoying life. I'm retired and I'm enjoying it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And not a lot of people can say that.
Yes.
These are the best years of their lives. They're stuck back in the good old days. But now is the good old days, the days we're living now. So prepare for the worst case scenario and be exceedingly grateful for everything else. And I learned that as a single mother. Prepare for worst case, but celebrate all the things that God has given me that are blessings in my life. Number 2, embrace the pain. Don't resist it. Because your influence only goes as far as your pain is deep. Kathy, if you had never had cancer, if you had never had the pain of looking into the mirror and saying, this is who I've become, I don't like who I've become, and I'm going to change it, and I'm going to do the hard thing, you would not be on this podcast inspiring other people.
That's correct, because I would have never changed anything.
That's right.
I'd have just kept on doing what I was doing.
That's right. And when you made that transition, the pain that you went through, emotionally, physically, I can't imagine how difficult it was for you to exercise with bad knees, carrying 300 pounds on those knees, but you pushed through and you decided to do the hard thing and to thrive instead of surviving. And here you are inspiring everybody else.
Thank you.
So what do you want to say to everybody?
Well, that if I can do it, I know you can do it, because it was hard for me when I first started, and even after I started losing, just to walk through the neighborhood. And now I walk 4.5 to 5 miles every day. So, I was not an active person. I don't do a whole lot of other exercise, but to get out and do that every day, if I can do it, I know you can do it.
That's exactly right. Well, Kathy, thank you so much for being on the Health Dare podcast. Before we go, talking about this challenge of thriving and not just surviving life, is there anything you'd like to say to that person out there who's listening under the sound of our voices and is content with who they are now, or maybe they're afraid to take that step? What is the last word you want to leave them with?
If you're afraid to take that step, you need to call the Health Dare, because they are there to support you every step of the way. Like I said, I had no clue as where to start. When we went to the grocery store, I came home that day and I told my husband, we can do this. We can do this. And they have been with me every step of the way.
That's wonderful. Well, if you're listening, you can call 1-877-I-DARE-ME, and we have a coach standing by to talk to you. We'd love to help you thrive, not just survive, like we've done for thousands of people. So thank you for listening to the Health Dare podcast. And if you like what you heard, go to idareme.com and contact our coaching team for support. I'm Coach Bridget. This is Kathy Barnett. She's a thriver, not a survivor. We're so excited to have her here today. 120-pound weight loss, beat cancer twice, and is now helping others do the same. Kathy and I look forward to hearing your story, and we dare you.